One of the good things about living where I do down here in Essex is that just across the road from me is a very large wooded area, so it's a nice place to walk. It reminds me, of course, that we're now in the summer and a lot of hams are turned into portable work, so I thought I'd have a look at an antenna which has some portable applications as well as applications for small gardens. So there we are, let's take a look. Welcome once again to the Waters and Stanton video channel. My name's Peter Waters, G30JV, and today I'm going to take a look at an antenna which I did talk about several years ago but didn't do any real in-depth tests with. It's made by Diamond. It's called the BB7V. V stands for vertical, 7 I've no idea what 7 stands for. BB probably stands for broadband. So broadband, 7, not sure, vertical, maybe it's a measurement, I'll check the measurements later on. Anyway, it's a vertical that covers from 2 megahertz to 30 megahertz, and the real attraction of this antenna is that it doesn't need radios. Now, as such, it's a good antenna for somebody with a small garden or somebody that wants to go portable. All you need to do is to telescope it out, which I'll cover in detail in a minute, and you've got an antenna which covers any band you like from 80 through to 10 meters. It is nicely made, and I'm going to pop some close-up shots here so you can see that it's got the usual U-bolts for support. There's insulators around the clamps so that the clamps aren't touching the radiator, and you've got this matching unit at the base which has an SO239 socket, standard SO239 socket, and it altogether feels a very nicely engineered product. And height wise, when it's collapsed down, well, I guess that's probably one and a bit meters, so it would certainly go into the average car. You probably wouldn't get it into the boot unless you had a big car, but you could poke it from the boot down to the front of the car or something like that. So it is highly portable. And in a minute, I'm just going to do a close-up of how these segments actually telescope out. Now, I've come close in. I hope you can see this okay. These sections just telescope out like that, and you pull the section up and you give it a sort of a twist. When you twist it, you can feel it notch into something. I don't know what it notches into, it notches into something, and that really is firm. Now, if you're going to use this as a semi-permanent antenna, I would strongly suggest you put some tape around those joints, because otherwise you'll get some moisture going in there. It will start to corrode. I mean, it is aluminium, but nevertheless, I would put something around there. But for portable work, you just lift it up, and it telescopes back into itself, which is quite nice. So you've got one. Is that top section there? Yes, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 telescopic sections, and later on I will measure it for you and tell you exactly how long it is. So very quick to erect or take down. I suppose really if you've got a you're in a neighbourhood where you don't want to be too conspicuous, it would be quite easy to put it up and then take it down again, but I rather like the way that works, and for portable it's ideal. Well, I've come down here down the garden to the vegetable patch, and I've put a stake in the ground here. It's a square stake in a square hole or something like that, as a temporary means of supporting the antenna. Now all we need to do is to put the antenna over the square section. Actually, the square section is not a bad thing to use because it stops the antenna from swinging round. It's I might use it again. The reason I've used this square section is because it's all I had, and those that watched the video channel recently will know that I tend to have to use what I have because I'm still really locked down, unfortunately. And so I found this bit of square section aluminium, which is a bit too long, and seems to do the job. Now I'm not going to let this video run while I tighten bolts up, so I'll come back to this once I've got a spanner to do the bolts up. Right, well, it's temporarily attached to this square section. As you can see, the U-bolts around it, and got a coax feed at the base there, ready to test it out. But of course the next thing to do is to actually telescope it, so that's the next job I'm going to do. So let's telescope it up. You sort of twist it and you can feel there's a notch there. I suppose if you could actually see the actual mechanism, you probably understand how it works. But anyway, as we can't see it, we have to do it by feel. And the last one, well, that's the BB7V, fully erected, nice slim antenna. By the way, I did check, it is 7 meters long, so hence BB7V stands for Broadband 7 meter Vertical from the Diamond Corporation. I forgot to mention actually that it does cover, it does handle 250 watts. So if you've got a high power transceiver like the FTDX 5000, then it'll handle that sort of power. It doesn't need radios, and it is self-supporting, which is, in my book, is quite important, because although I'm not a great gardener, it is a pain if you've got an antenna, a vertical antenna that's guide, and you've got to take the guys up to cut the lawn. So it's a personal thing, but I prefer my vertical antennas to be self-supporting. So there we are. It's a nice slim job, very pleased with it. We had some windy weather last night and it seemed to survive. We've got some windy weather now. You may be able to hear it in the microphone, but it seems to be fairly stable, I think, because it's fairly slim. So the next thing to do is to try it out. So I'm going to go indoors, switch the transceiver on, connect the antenna up, and we'll see what happens. What I'm now going to do is to go through the bands from, I was going to go from 80 to 10 meters, but I'm going to try 160. And you'll see the VSWR come up on the right hand side. So here we are on 160 meters. Well, there we are, just over 2, so that's not bad. 80 meters, 1.2, 5 megs, yeah, 1.3 and 5 megs, 40 meters, 7 megs. What have you got there? A good match there, 1.1. 10 megs for the CW guys. What have we got? 1.7, about 1.7, a bit higher there, but still well within tolerance. 14 megs, back to 1.2. 80 megahertz, one of my favourite bands actually. It's 1.3. Almost a perfect match on 21 megahertz. 24 megs, which is a band I hardly ever operate on. We got 1.4. And finally 10 metres. So you can see that's quite good. Well below 2 to 1 on all bands apart from 160 metres where it's not actually rated. And generally speaking about the 1.2, 1.3, which is very, very good indeed. I have actually operated the antenna. I had a contact on 160 metres with the guy about 2 or 3 miles away, so it does work on 160, but I think the efficiency is pretty low. Well, the first band that I chose to test the antenna on was 20 metres, the 14 megahertz band. And I found a station to have a QSO with, an Italian station. Golf 3 Oscar, Japan, Victoria. G3 Ocean, Japan, Victoria.
Hey, are you listening in the private Japan, Victoria, okay?
Yeah, Golf 3 Oscar, Japan, Victoria. George, Figure 3, O Oscar, J Japan, V Victoria. QSL?
Roger, Golf 3, Oscar, Japan, Victoria, good morning. IU2MCW, Michael Shine, my name is Max. You see 58, 59 real, okay?
Yeah, okay, Max. A very good afternoon to you. My name is Peter, Papa Echo Tango Echo Romeo. You're 5 and 9. Many thanks for the contact from Golf 3 Oscar, Juliet Victor. Next I switched to 80 metres. I heard a station calling CQ, so it was an opportunity to actually have a QSO on 80 metres. I'm running the Elecraft K3 here, 100 watts, and to a short vertical from Golf 3 Oscar, Juliet Victor.
Okay, well, when I came in the chat, before I turned the switch on a power start, which is the meter to go to 6 metre rig, I had a tune on 6 metres and this
Well, band conditions were not wonderful because we are at the bottom of the sunspot cycle, and so what I did was I wanted to do some comparisons. I've got a half-wave end-fed antenna. It's half-wave on 40 metres, which I've mentioned in videos before. And because it's a half-wave end-fed with the appropriate matching unit, it works on harmonic, so it works on 20 metres and 40 metres. And I also had a dipole for 18 megs, so it enabled me to do some comparative checks here. So what you'll now see is some A-B switching between effectively the dipole, full-size dipole on each band, and the vertical. Just going to switch over between the two antennas. That's the vertical, and that's the big horizontal. That's the vertical again. That's horizontal. I mean, there is a difference, but you can't. It's not greatly obvious. So that's going between the vertical and the horizontal. Some curious. All right, this is on 18 meg CW. Again, going between the two aerials. Hardly any difference. So stands up well. It's on 18 megs. Right, it's on 40 metres. I would say there's about an S-point difference. That's the main half wave, and that's the vertical. That's the main half wave, and well, the on-air tests are quite interesting. It's a vertical antenna, as I've said before, that doesn't need radials, and it does lend itself very much to somebody that's got a small garden or somebody that wants to go out portable, and it does have the advantage that it covers all the main HF bands. Now, I'm not going to pretend the efficiency is the same as, for example, a dipole or a full-size vertical on each band, but it does give a good account of itself, particularly on 20 metres and above, because the antenna, being 7 metres long, is at least a quarter wave on those bands and longer. And even on 10 megs if you're a CW operator, it's a very good length, and it seems to be supported by the contacts on the tests that I did. On 40 metres and 80 metres, there's going to be some loss. It's inevitable, the antenna's short. There's going to be some losses in that matching unit. Now, I don't know what the matching unit comprises. It's a large bulbous unit and it handles 250 watts, so quite clearly it's quite substantial. But nevertheless, there's going to be losses. I hesitate to put a figure on that because in the tests that I did, the A/B tests, it was really impossible to come to any conclusion. Very often, going between the dipole and the vertical made very little difference at all, but conditions aren't stable. I would say that on 40 metres you're probably going to lose an S point, but on the tests I did, it didn't always appear to be that. Very often, going from A to B wasn't much difference. On 80 metres there's got to be a difference. There's got to be a loss there, and I would say that you can expect at least one S point, maybe 1.5 S points. But it does enable you to go on or get on the 80 metre band. You know, on the HF bands, when we're talking about an S point difference, it's not as important as you might think. The time that it becomes important is when you're in competition with other stations, but an S point down doesn't actually make a great deal of difference unless you're right on the margin. If, for example, you're on 20 metres and on 20 metres I found the antenna quite efficient, but let's suppose on 20 metres you're an S point down. It means to say that you're S8 instead of S9 with the guy down the road who's got a half-wave dipole at sort of 30 or 40 feet. It doesn't make that much difference. On VHF it would be totally different, but on HF it doesn't actually make that much difference. You'll make contacts, of course you will. You may have to wait your turn, but you'll make contacts. So to summarise, the Diamond BB7V is a very nice and attractive antenna. It covers the frequency range 2 to 30 megahertz. And it works, and you get a low SWR, so you don't need an ATU. That's a plus point as well. You don't need an ATU. Any modern transceiver with the ATU switched out will still match it. If you've got a built-in ATU, then you might as well use it and get sort of 1-to-1. So it doesn't need an ATU, it doesn't need radials, and it's very easy to erect. Now, because it's telescopic, it means to say that in situations where you don't want to upset your neighbours, you can telescope it down. The one caveat I would say is that because it is telescopic and it's got this locking mechanism, if you're going to use it in a permanent position for any period of time, I would strongly suggest you put tape round the joints so that the joint is it stops the ingress of water. I mean, you might want to put a dab of, I don't know, Vaseline or something like that on it as well, which might help. But I would certainly put some tape round, just ordinary sort of sticky tape, which means so you can quickly remove it if you want to telescope it down. As regards windy weather, we've had 40-mile-an-hour winds over the last day or so, which is unusual in the summer, but we've had them. And it seemed to be okay. It moved about a bit, but it didn't move to the point where I thought, gosh, this is dangerous. So I think in normal locations it should be okay. Nothing to stop you putting guys on there, insulated guys. That should be quite easy, and you wouldn't need them very high anyway. Probably at about sort of 3 meters above ground, just above head height would be okay. I did mention in the video that I would try radials, and I did try some radials, and really and truly I can't honestly say it made much difference. I checked it on receive, and I could hear the radials going onto the antenna, but there was no detectable difference in signal strength. So I think it's fair to say that probably radials aren't going to make any difference. To be fair, I did have about 50 foot of coax on, so the coax itself, the outer sheathing, would act as some sort of radial. But anyway, most people are going to have some feeder anyway. So there we are, the BB7V made by Diamond, nicely engineered, nicely packaged, will go into a car, will go into the most back gardens, and you can't get away from the fact that it doesn't need radials. Okay, there's going to be some losses in that matching unit, but to me they didn't seem to be that significant, particularly on the higher bands. So I hope that's given you some insight into the antenna and give you food for thought. In the meantime, thanks for watching this video. Do appreciate that, and if you want to be kept informed of what's coming up, press the subscribe button on the right hand side there. Till the next time, thanks for tuning in, thanks for your custom if you're one of our customers, and enjoy your ham radio, keep safe. See you soon.